Hello, everyone. How are you guys doing? I hope you are learning about UDL during the conference and you get to hear many good presentations. So, welcome to my session, The Goldilocks Effect, what it is and how to apply it in UDL. And it is my honor and pleasure to be the part of 2023 UDL-IRN International Summit. Okay, before we get started, I just want to give my brief introduction. My name is Mamta Verma. I work as a special education instructional facilitator specialist at the district level in Brazosport ISD. We are in Greater Houston and we are a coastal town in the south of Texas. I'm a mom. I'm a grandmom, a 5-year-old, a chirpy little girl, and I am a pet grandma as well. I have over 3 decades of classroom and leadership experience in United States as well as internationally. I was raised with a vision that learning never stops, and this belief kept me going all these years and gave me an insight that children across the world have similar barriers when it comes to learning. And universal design for learning framework is the solution to remove the barrier. I just want to give a disclaimer. I'm a multilingual, not a native English speaker. English is my second language, but it worked as an advantage to me because I understood the barriers English language learner face while processing the information from one language to another. That added advantage to me. So, the session objectives are we will learn the difference between just right and what is right approach, address anticipated barriers to address learner variability, to plan what is right, break implicit and explicit biases in the curriculum, environment, and learner variability, plan what is right, UDL lesson that impact teaching and learning. Okay, guys, even though this is a asynchronous session, but it will be interactive. We will use the Padlet. If you see on the top of it, you when the right time come, you can log in and you can this is the login key on the right hand side on the top of it. We will use Padlet, we will use Google Forms, we will use Google Jamboard, and we are using Google Slides. According to the Goldilocks Principle, that something is the best which is neither too much nor too little, but the just right amount. This concept can be applied in the many areas of life, including determining what is right or appropriate in the given situation. The Goldilocks principle states that the teacher should focus on the material that is not too easy and not too hard, but just right. So, what do you understand when the Goldilocks principle applies to the education? Let's go to the next slide. Here, if you click the link and you will open, it will take you to the Padlet. What is the right approach? Is too hot? too cold, or just right approach should be followed in the education. You can pause the video and you can use your response, and after you complete it, then you can resume the video. I hope you were able to answer what is right approach. Before we talk about what is right approach, let's talk about the Goldilocks and the three bears. We all heard the story, whether as a parent, whether as a kid, we all heard the story. This analogy is based on the story, The Goldilocks and the Three Bears, in which Goldilocks tastes three different bowls of porridge, and she finds that she prefers the porridge which is neither too hot nor too cold but has just right temperature. So, after you responded to the question, what should be the right approach in the education setting? Is just right or what is right for the student in the classroom? I know some classroom materials are too hard for the students to understand. Some, for some students, the classroom materials or teaching is too easy for them, so they are not engaged. When it's too hard, they are not engaged. When we talk about it, just the right. So, which means we are only addressing the need of average learners in the classroom. Just right. We are looking at providing one size fits all approach. So, now the question is just right or what is right? So, how can we find solution to offer what is right for each student when we address the learner variability in the classroom? Is just right is should be our approach, or what is right should be our approach? Before we move to the next section, let's talk about equity versus equality. Equality is that everyone gets the same. We provide the same resources, we teach them in the same way without any discrimination or biases in the classrooms. Examples may be providing the same resources and materials to all students, regardless of their background or abilities, setting the same expectations and standards for all students, and offering the same opportunities for participation and engagement in the classroom. Now, let's talk about equity. Equity refers to ensuring that all students have access to the resources and support they need to succeed, even if that means treating them differently based them on their individual needs. The examples are providing additional resources or accommodations to the student with disabilities or learning differences, offering extra support and mentoring to the students who are struggling academically or emotionally, creating a culturally responsive curriculum that acknowledges and celebrates the diversity of student backgrounds and experiences. So, what should be the approach? Even you look at the image, equality versus equity. Now, you see, if you look at the equality image, we offered all the equal resources. So, whether the students are going to learn, when we offer the equality principle, but when we offer the equity principle, we are providing accessibility to all students based on their needs, based on their learning differences, based on their disabilities, based on the learner variability in the classroom. So we are trying to break barriers in the classroom. by proactively planning those. So, what is the solution? Now, is UDL is a solution for breaking all those barriers? Let's look at the UDL thinking. Universal design for learning is a way of thinking about teaching and learning that helps all students to have equal opportunities to succeed. The approach offers flexibility in the ways the student access materials, engage with it, and show what they know. And this approach in education make the learning accessible to all learners, regardless of their abilities or learning preferences. It involves considering learners' diverse needs, ability, designing flexible educational material experiences that can be adapted to meet the needs of all students. UDL framework has three basic principles: multiple means of engagement, by providing learners with multiple options to engage with learning materials and experiences, such as providing different topics, themes, and mode of instruction. Multiple means of representation, providing learners with multiple options of receiving and processing information, such as using different media, visual aids, and interactive tools. The third principle: multiple means of action and expression, providing learners with multiple options for demonstrating their understanding of the material, such as allowing them to choose how they express themselves and providing them with scaffolding and supports. Thus, UDL thinking involves considering each of these principles when designing educational experiences and materials and striving to create learning environment that is inclusive, accessible to all learners. By doing so, educators can help ensure that each learner has opportunity to succeed and reach their full potential. Means all. It's not one size fits all. It is learning means all for all learners. It should be accessible, it should be flexible. Now let's look at this image. This is a cycle. When we design lesson, we have objective. What is our aim? What we want to teach our students? What potential barriers do we anticipate to reaching out to all students? What supports we need to build in? What when we use UDL guidelines, how we can remove barriers to increase the options of learning? How can we provide feedback or get feedback whether student mastered or learned the lesson? And think about it. The first piece is think about it. Who are the people? Whether they have learning differences, whether they are globally slow, whether have a visually impaired or hearing impaired, or they have different learning differences. So think about all this before we plan to create an intentional learning plan for our students in our classroom. So this is very interesting, 2 1-minute videos that will give you why should we use universal design for learning for intentional planning to provide different options and accessibility. You can pause this video and watch. Once you complete watching these 2 videos, then you can resume the presentation. I hope you watch these videos. Now you can see the difference. It's the same child. When the child didn't have the accessible options, how the child tried to pour the juice, and when the child has accessible option, and how the child was able to pour the juice into the container. So that should be the approach. Before moving to the next portion of this presentation, it is very important we need to learn brain based learning versus UDL. Before we dig deeper, we should understand the brain networks and the universal design for learning works. When the brain receives sensory information, it receives it receives what we see, what we hear, received back of the brain, including the occipital and temporal lobes. That is known as recognition network, and that is the what of learning, which aligns perception, language, symbols, comprehension, and also known as representation networks. When information is processed and relayed for meaning, it goes into the center of the brain, which is known as affective network, the why of learning, which aligns with the interest, efforts, persistence, and self regulation, also known as engagement network. When information is organized in the frontal lobes for response or action, strategic network or how of learning aligns with physical action, expression, and communication and executive function, and also known as action and expression networks. These three broad networks can be helpful when design learning experiences. So, these three brain networks plays a huge role in designing our instruction. Now let's talk about brain networks, choice and voice in the classroom. This is very important piece in UDL. Choice and voice in the classroom allows students to make decisions about their learning and express their opinions and ideas in the classroom. We talk about it like a self advocacy. We should teach self advocacy in the classroom. What is the meaning of self advocacy? We talk about choices, we talk about voices, right? Giving a voice. Self advocacy, we are giving a voice. If the student have voice in their learning, the making have a decision part of the decision making process is going to impact learning in the classroom. When students have a say what they learn and how they are going to learn, they are more engaged, motivated, and interested in their education. Here are some ways we can incorporate choice and voice in the classroom. We can offer choices. We can give choices. Students can choose different assignments, projects, activities that not only give them a sense of control but also help with the differentiated instruction. Choice refers to giving students sense of autonomy and control over their own learning experiences. Giving choices increase motivation, engagement, and sense of ownership in the classroom. So even they can choose the books for the independent reading, giving them multiple options for completing assignments or projects, or letting them choose the topics they want to research and explore. Similarly, voice allows students to express their ideas, opinions, perspective in creating the classroom environment where students feel comfortable sharing their thoughts, ideas without fear of judgment or ridicule. Giving students a voice in the classroom can help them to build their confidence, communication skills, sense of community, and some ways to give students a voice, conducting classroom discussions, giving them opportunity to present their work, and incorporating student feedback into the lesson planning. Overall, incorporating both choice and voice in the classroom can lead to more engaging, empowering, and student centered learning experience. So, I included this image. This is an image of my granddog. So, my daughter took a picture of by offering all the different kind of lotions and ointment to create a secret of the beauty of this pet. His name is Eddie, and I related in that way. Are we giving a choice? Are we giving a voice which product you want to use? Or giving them too many choices spoils or confuse Eddie? According to Todd rules, we are not only unique in comparison to one another, but we are uniquely approach learning depending on our own response to the environment and activity. Now we are talking about the learner variability before designing the instruction. Giving choice and voice, how do we address learner variability when we are proactively, intentionally plan to provide flexibility? Now let's watch this short video about on learner variability. This video is from CAST. It gives you information about learner variability in the classroom. Learner variability, you can pause the video and resume after watching it, or you can continue watching it. So before we move to the next slide, let's talk about learner variability. Learner variability refers to the differences among learners in the terms of their cognitive, emotional, and physical abilities, and their background, experiences, and interest. These differences can impact how students learn, process information, and engage in learning activities. Some common examples of learner variability include differences in attention, working memory, language proficiency, motor skills, culture background, and background experiences. UDL seeks to address learner variability by providing multiple means of engagement, multiple means of action and expression, and multiple means of representation. This means the educator should offer different ways to students to access information, demonstrate their knowledge, and participating in the learning activities. For example, providing captions or transcripts of the language, providing different options for students to demonstrate their learning, such as through written assignment, oral presentation, or multimedia projects, or accommodate learners with different strengths and preferences. So, UDL is a powerful framework for addressing learner variability and promoting equity and inclusion in education. Let's think about it fingerprints. We all talk about it. We know that not two fingerprints are alike. When we talk about fingerprints, they are unique, distinct, different, diverse, dissimilar, variable, right? So that is why it's so unlikely anyone has the same fingerprint as you. You are the one in 64 billion chance. Is it not amazing? Then why the students are offered one size fits all approach when each fingerprint is not identical? Then where is the average brain that can be instructed with the approach of one size fits all? Like fingerprints, no two brains are alike. Each brain is complex, interconnected, web sculpted, and influenced by genetics and environment interactions. Even twins are not alike. Let's think about a scenario. You have 20 students in your classroom and you are planned to engage all these students. And all students are learning at a different pace. They are not learning at the same pace. They have unique needs. There are some ELL learners. There are some issues with the memory, long term, short term memory. Maybe they have labels ADHD. Maybe they have reading deficiencies. So, how can we expect that we are going to teach all students in one way? Now, let's talk about the UDL barriers. We talked about learner variability. Let's talk about the barriers. Barriers are something that stands in the way the child being able to learn effectively. There can be more than one barrier at a time. There may be a curriculum barrier, adult barrier, or maybe some other barriers that inhibit learning. So, how can we reduce barriers? This is another short video you can watch on your own. So, let's move to the next slide, and there will be one activity which we are going to work. So the UDL barriers can be curriculum barrier, maybe adult barrier, because adult they also have their different teaching styles than the student, their own barriers. Then the barriers are implicit and explicit lesson barriers, curriculum barriers, or behavior in the classroom, the student behavior. They're overstimulated. So now we are going to pause the video and we'll resume after completing this Google form. In this Google form, you will be answering whatever applies to you. Either you can click on the link or either you can use the QR code. And you have to answer the two questions. What barriers you faced when you were as a student in the classroom? And now, what barriers you face as a teacher in the classroom? I hope you completed this activity. Now let's move to the next part where we'll be planning the lesson. Okay, so now this is the UDL lesson design. This is a cycle. It starts with learner goals. The first, we need to define flexible and clear goals. And then, keeping the backward design in our mind, we look at the assessment. We try to gather information about learners' performance and help educators make educational decisions based on data. So we need to consider in these three steps, we need to consider learner variability. Who, what is the diverse learners? Who are the diverse learners in our classroom? What methods, what teaching approaches are needed to address learner variability and ensure that students are able to learn information? Then comes material. Choose materials that offer flexibility and relevance and balance assistance with the challenge. And then we go to goals again, whether we were able to meet the goals we intended to teach our students. Okay, guys, this is a fun activity. Now, what you can do is you can join pd.com in the browser and type the code on the right hand side, which is SLLJKY. So you can type the code SLLJKY. You will put the browser joinpd.com, then you will add this code. Now we are going to do a fun part. Okay, now let's plan a vacation. What is the first thought comes to your mind when planning a vacation? You can write your response. We will be exploring four components planning a vacation. We will have goals, assessment, methods, and materials. When you plan a vacation, what do you think? You think about destination, you think about time when you are planning the vacation, you think about the money you need, you think about the mode of transportation, flying, driving, or using, going on a cruise, where you're going to stay, what recreation you are doing, and what kind of meals do you need, right? So now you can answer these questions. What would you take for vacation and what would you do? Where would you take your vacation or what would you do? What barriers do you anticipate and what solutions do you have to overcome those barriers? You can pause the video and you can move further. Your goals or your destination. Are you planning to going to beach, camping, festival, historical site, nature wonders, supporting events, amusement park or other? Think about how would you travel? What will be your mode of transportation? The methods. What barriers do you use? And solutions to those barriers. These are your methods. You will use boat, bus, car, bike, plane, RV, or train. Materials. What would you need for your vacation? And what barriers do you anticipate? And what are the solutions to those barriers? You need money, age groups, variability. Sometimes, like infants, babies, or toddlers, or teenagers, or old people, or couples, they're going together. We need to think and plan ahead. What kind of clothing do we need? Are we going to place the coastal area? What kind of clothing do we need? Are we going to like a cold area? So, what kind of clothing do we need? Transportation. Are we taking our own car? Are we flying? What if we miss the plane? What is a plan A? What is a plan B? What kind of food do we need? Do we need any medicines? If somebody gets sick, what kind of motels, hotels we are living in? Have we made our advance booking? Entertainment during flying? Are we taking our iPads, games, board games? Or are we planning on bringing some gifts for ourselves or for our loved ones? Now, finally, the assessment. How would you evaluate your vacation? That is a valid question. Whether it went well, whether we had lots of barrier, whether we did not plan well. So now think about it. Your past vacation. What things worked well? What things didn't go well? And what would you do differently to proactively plan? Is it not interesting? So now we are doing the same thing. Now we are going to plan a UDL lesson, the four components. As we planned, lesson planning is just like a vacation. Even we are doing like a cooking, right? In the kitchen, you look at what you're going to cook today in dinner, right? That is your goal. Assessment, whether the meal turned out good or not. How you going to cook, right? Whether you are doing barbecue, whether you're cooking in the kitchen, whether you're using a stove, whether you're using an oven, whether you're using an air fryer, and what material do you need? You need vegetable, you need meat, you need uh, spices. So this is all. Everything is like a proactively planning. You plan cooking, you plan vacation, or you plan a wedding. Everything is like a proactively. That is a UDL lesson plan. So now we are quickly doing a elementary lesson together. It's based on the TEAC. So this is the standard we would be addressing in this lesson plan. So traditional goal. Students are expected to recognize central ideas with supporting evidence in a textbook. So what barriers do we anticipate? So what are the anticipated barriers to representation network when planning this goal? What are the anticipated barriers to action and expression network when planning this goal? So let's go to the next slide. So these are representation barriers, the goal. The students are still required to learn how to identify the main idea with supporting details. So what do they need? They need audiobook, they need digital text, or they need internet or video. How to address the action and expression barriers? Since the student struggle to demonstrate what they learned about the main idea with supporting detail, so how they are going to answer, what options are we providing? Are they providing answers by using speech to text? Are we giving them option making a video or creating a digital presentation or drawing? Think about it. So student expected to recognize central idea with supporting detail. So these are some goals we need to address proactively. So now these are some barriers, representation barriers. So in printed text, some students with certain visual impairment and certain physical disabilities may have difficulty accessing information. Some students may struggle with decoding text. Action and expression barriers. Finding center idea with the supporting details. Some students struggle or having difficulty with handwriting. Some students have difficulty effectively organizing thoughts and putting on the piece of paper. Let's think about it when we create any goal. So now let's create a UDL goal. The student will be able to identify the central idea with supporting details within a text in a graphic organizer. So even with that, they will have some anticipated barriers in the representation network and the action and expression network. So what will be the anticipated barrier in the curriculum goal? Because they still have to identify main idea with supporting detail, but we are providing scaffolds and support such as audiobooks, digital text, and internet and video. Student will still need to demonstrate what they learned about the main idea, but we are providing supports, answering questions by using speech to text. They may create a video, creating a digital presentation, and drawing. So we have given them support in a UDL way. So now let's talk about the assessments. These are few questions. What assessment would you use? What are the anticipated barriers to use this assessment, or how it is assessments are going to impact learner variability? So what flexible options we are going to provide so that the students can demonstrate learning? So here are some anticipating barriers with the curriculum assessments. That traditionally we will give the following, like a worksheet, chapter review exercise, written reports. But due to the variability, these are the potential barriers because they have to rely on printed text, visually perceive, process visual information, be physically able to write. But when we provide flexible opportunities to demonstrate knowledge or skills, we can give them a choice between paper or digital version. We can give them format and medium of presentation. We can let them do individual, pair, or small group, or they can use rubric. They can use slides, they can use narrative, they can use graphic organizers, wiki, and visual, note taking, and text to speech. So these are few solutions they can use while removing those potential barriers. Now let's look about the methods. What instructional methods will you use to teach the lesson? Then again, the barriers when they are teaching the lessons. And what are the solutions to remove the anticipated barriers? So here are some solutions to remove anticipated barriers within the curriculum. So here are the traditional. Students learn content by independently reading their textbooks. So this is a traditional method barrier. So students need to understand and learn the content regardless of their background knowledge or cultural experiences. Extract the relevant information in the text. So this can be the potential barrier. During the classroom lecture, the teacher summarizes the information in the textbook. But due to the limited examples in the textbook, they need to identify key areas. They have to be physically and cognitive able to take notes. And what happens during the whole group instruction when teacher shows us short video, then facilitate? In that case, the whole group instruction usually target the middle 50% of the classroom. Students required to engage or participate in whole discussion. So how we gonna address these potential barriers? So here are some solutions. We can build or activate background knowledge by asking related experiences using formative assessments. Pre-teaching vocabulary using multiple media. Providing multiple examples of important concepts or objects, and then utilizing flexible grouping. Following the video, meet with small groups to discuss and conduct related demonstration, providing corrective feedback. So these are anticipated UDL solution when to deal with the anticipated barriers within the curriculum. So what materials would you need to teach the lesson? What potential barriers do you anticipate by using the material, and what are the solutions to those barriers? In traditional method, text-based method may be too difficult. The teacher provide textbook or handouts. Audio-based material, the teacher provide lectures or videos. Or image or graphic-based material, video or handout. So what will be the potential barrier? The potential barrier will be require student to see, decode and comprehend written text, process visual information, require student to listen, identify the key points, process oral information, physically and cognitively able to take the notes. So now what are the solutions do we have? In addition to printed text, provide student with the option of accessing the information through the digital text, provide proactively notes. Digital text can be manipulated for easier visual access and can be converted to speech. Accompany lecture with a slide to provide student with the option of accessing information visually. Slides can serve scaffold for the student who have difficulty in identifying the key points, providing them notes before the class. Provide student with the option of using graphic organizers and notes taking. And show the video with the open captioning or provide an oral description of the images, like accessible format of images. Now, what connects these concepts? Vacation planning versus UDL lesson planning. Do you feel there is a common connection between the both concepts? Whether we are planning a vacation, whether we are planning a meal, and whether we are planning UDL lesson. So everything needs proactive, intentional planning to remove all anticipated and potential barriers. Okay, so here we are. Here we have all the lesson resources which we use to create this presentation. It has a copy of UDL lesson plan, tools and resources, common barriers and UDL strategies, UDL cast, UDL barrier ID flow chart, and this is a lesson plan. And here are some resources which has been used, references in creating this presentation. You can, if you want to explore more, do not hesitate to open these links and read further. If you have any questions for me, do not hesitate to reach out to me. In the next slide, In the next slide, we have our my email, and you can email me if you have any questions about this presentation or you have any questions about these references. My email is mamta.verma@brazoscopeist.com, and my personal email is mamtaverma10@gmail.com. Thank you very much. Please do not hesitate to contact me. It was wonderful sharing this presentation with you all. Thank you and have a blessed day.